And now my scooter is dialed. Subscribe. The lighting is a bit weird. Yo, what's good, everybody? It's Josh here, and of course, back with another video. This is my third day uploading in a row. Today, I'm gonna be teaching you guys how to dial your scooter. A lot of people think that having a dialed scooter is over the top or it's not necessary, which it's not necessary, obviously, because people don't have their scooter dialed all the time. But having a dialed scooter is actually very important. One of the main things that it prevents is just little part breaking here and there on your scooter, which is obviously bad because then you can't ride, blah, 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 so on and so forth. Obviously, in scooters and in all other things that have wheels, they have small little bearings, small little parts and everything. And if you don't keep them all together and tightened together so that they don't move around, they might break. And we don't want that, obviously. Keep your scooter dialed as much as possible. And the importance of having a dialed scooter is just to keep your scooter lasting as long as possible because you paid for the parts. One thing that I don't have on hand is grease. Now, greasing your headset is very important. I learned that from Chris, the owner of Dialed Scooters and BMX. He taught me that putting grease on your headset is very important because you want to be able to get your headset bearings in and out very easily. That's one thing that's important that I'm not going to be doing today because I do already have grease on my headset bearings. I will be taking apart my scooter, putting it back together, showing you guys how to keep your scooter nice and tight and ready to go for the next ride. Okay, so first off, we obviously need some tools to dial the scooter with. So I'm going to get out 3 tools that you can dial almost any scooter with. Most of the time, you're only going to need 2, but having 3 is great because sometimes you need 2 Allen keys. We've got 1 set of Allen keys here. It depends on what your scooter takes. Sometimes it's a 5, a 6, sometimes it's a 4. Like if it's a brake bolt, you're going to want to have either like a 5 or a 6, or preferably both, because those are the main ones that you're going to want to use. And then you're going to want to have some kind of socket. Now I have these I don't really know what these are called, but they're pliers basically. They're Cobalt pliers that I have for my garage, and these work really well. Sometimes the socket doesn't fit in, but basically a socket is going to grab hold of a nut. So for example, this is a nut. It's really big. You'll probably see these on the end of your scooter on the back end. Sometimes they'll be on the front too, but a lot of times you won't need a plier for the front one. You can get a socket or a plier. I like a plier because it fits any size nut. And then I do have a second set of Allen key here that I can use in case I have to tighten 2 Allen keys at once against each other or whatever. But usually you're only going to need a socket or plier and Allen key. Sometimes just an Allen key. Also, obviously, sometimes you have these. You might need like 2 of these. You got a 5 and a 6. Sometimes you need a 4. But it just doesn't really matter as long as you have the right ones for your scooter. Now we're going to get into actually dialing the scooter. I wish I had a big table to do this on, but I have this very small table. We've got that bolt right there, which takes an Allen key, and then we have the other side, which is a nut, as you guys can tell, and that's where these come in handy, and you're just gonna grab the nut. The main way you can check to see if it's your wheels that's the problem is you just hold your deck and then just try to move them. If they're not moving, then they're probably good to go, but you can always tighten them just in case. So we've got a 6mm Allen key right here that fits right in there, and then we've got the socket or the pliers in my case. You're just gonna grab onto it or use the socket as much as possible, and you're gonna turn it right all the way until you can't anymore. So I'm gonna loosen it a little bit and show you guys what it sounds like. When it's loose, it's really loose right now, and you can also hear it. That's a very common sound with scooters, and it's also very annoying to hear. Obviously, set your Allen key in there. Put your pliers on the other side, make sure it's wrapped around nice and tight, or if it's a socket, just make sure you're holding it, and you're gonna turn it right. Obviously, because righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, we all know that. Now it's tight, so we're not gonna have that ugly noise anymore, and it's gonna be just the other stuff, which I'm not sure what it is yet, but we're gonna figure it out. Then we have the front wheel. So I'm riding the Dialed Scooters and BMX Inferno fork. This one actually has a nut holder so that the fork holds the nut, so I don't have to have a socket on there. So I only need 1 Allen key, but as you can see, there is a nut over here. Sometimes it won't hold it for you, so you're gonna need a socket again. But for me, I just need my Allen key. So it's a 6mm again. I'm just gonna tighten it as much as possible. And again, mine's already tight enough. And you can test it, see if it's loose or not. So now your wheels should be good to go. One thing that a lot of people don't check on their scooters is their brakes. A lot of times that's what's making the noise, and mine is actually very loose. Very, very loose. Now, some decks don't have brake bolts, but some of them are on the top, some of them are on the bottom. For me, mine's on the bottom. So, as you can tell, it's all right there on the bottom of the deck. This is gonna be a 4mm Allen key, and it's very simple, just like the other stuff. You're going to just tighten it like a normal bolt, and you should be good to go. Now, be careful with your brake bolt. Brake bolts strip very easily because they're usually a 4mm. They're usually not a 5 or a 6, so they're not gonna be as strong. So, be very careful. You don't wanna strip your brake bolts because then it'll be hard to get out or you won't be able to tighten it. And if there's 2 bolts, which most brakes have 2, just go back and forth and make sure each one's getting tightened the same amount. Usually it's not that crucial, but just try your best to go back and forth. And I kind of wish I was at the shop today so I could film it in the shop. It would have been much easier because it's hard to hold my scooter so the camera can see it, as you guys can tell. It's working out, hopefully. Hopefully you guys are getting the gist of the video. I'll have to make a V2 at some point at the shop to where it's easier to understand and everything because there's a bigger table and everything. Now, brake is tightened. The wheels are tightened. What's next? We have a few more things here. So we've got obviously the clamp, we've got the compression. If I had SCS, it would be more complicated, and I do not have SCS, so I can't show you guys about SCS today. We're gonna do the harder part, which is the inner, components, the compression, the fork, everything like that, and that's usually where people mess up. I'm running HSC, so taking my bars off is gonna be very simple. I'm just gonna need whatever bolt, whichever size for my clamp bolts here. Okay, so you're gonna wanna try to make sure not to loosen each one all the way and then the next one all the way. You're gonna wanna take turns. So if it's super tight, you're gonna do a little bit of turn here, and then you're gonna go down to the bottom one, and you're gonna do the same thing, just a little bit, and then you're gonna do the same thing again, and then you're gonna do a little bit more until the clamp is just kind of moving around on there, which mine is, so I'll probably be able to take my bars off now. Just make sure you don't do one all the way and then the other one all the way, because that can mess up your clamp. So now my clamp's loose, my bar should come right off. I don't know if I need to grab it with my feet. I'll try to grab it with my feet. So sometimes you need to give it a little bit of a bang with your foot and it'll work. Or maybe you didn't loosen it all the way. You just have to figure that one out yourself. So now my bars are off. And we've got the inner part of the scooter. The main thing that you want to check for whenever you're doing this part is that you don't want your fork moving around. So if you have everything on like this and you know that this is semi-tight or however it was, you're gonna want to check your fork on this, and you're gonna want to check your fork up here. Obviously it's the same thing either way, but it's just good to check on both of them. So my headset's already tight, my fork isn't moving around, but you just want to make sure that your fork isn't moving around, because that could be very detrimental when you start to ride. I'm gonna take apart my scooter real quick to show you guys how to put it on and to make sure everything is good to go, because sometimes people put it on incorrectly and that'll cause your scooter to make some weird noises and you don't know how to fix it. You're gonna take this off. So this is gonna be your top bolt for your compression, pretty self-explanatory, and that screws right into the fork. Occasionally people will have the wrong bolt. They will just grab a random bolt or something and try to screw it in, and that might be the reason why. Usually you're gonna have the right bolt. So if you do have the wrong bolt, I would go to a hardware store or something and find one that fits right into your fork, but usually it's not gonna be a problem. We have this, you can see right down into the fork here, and then you have your shim here. I'm gonna take my shim off real quick. It should just come right off. You hold the bottom of your fork and you just take it off like that, and then your fork would be able to slide right out just like that. So I have my headset bearing already on my fork. Up here we have a headset bearing, and then we have a little spacer here. So if you're running HIC, this one's gonna be a little bit wider, and if you're running IHC, it's gonna be a little bit beefier because it has to compress a little bit farther in. So we've got a headset bearing here. When you put your headset bearings in, you just want to, usually they'll go right in, but if they do not, you're gonna want to just lightly tap on all the sides of it to get it in, and you don't want to get it stuck. That's a really bad thing that can happen. Then we've got this little guy. You're going to set it just right in the middle, just like that. It goes right on top of the headset bearing, and then you have your fork, and mine already has my headset bearing on it. That's how I would suggest doing it. And this little angled part here faces upwards, so you're gonna go like that, and then you're gonna slide it on like this. And as you can tell, this came off with whenever I put my fork in. So you're just gonna wanna slide that back on. It should fit right over your fork, just like that. And you're gonna wanna give it a nice little push so that you know that it's all the way on. And at this point, you're good to go to throw your shim on. You're gonna throw the shim on just like this. And if you run a headset cap, you wanna put your headset cap on before your shim. You put your headset cap on, and then you put your shim on, just like that, and it should go right on. Now this shim, if you push it down all the way, your fork shouldn't move or anything like that. Then you've got this bolt here and your little circular thingy thing that goes on top. I'm just gonna set that on. You can tighten it with your fingers at first, then once it gets a little bit tighter, boom, boom, do one of these. And then whenever you're tightening it, you don't want to tighten these all the way. When you're tightening your wheels, you can tighten your wheels almost all the way, but when you're tightening your headset, you don't want to tighten it all the way, just because you want to be able to still be able to spin your bars. Like right now, in my opinion, this is too tight, because I like to whip my scooter really fast. You're gonna go in and basically right about there, just to the point where it's not loose, but it's not too tight. Whenever you hit it, you want it to be able to do like about half a turn, just like that. I think mine's still a little bit tight. So basically you tighten it right until it gives you some tension. Give a little bit more, and then you should be good to go. Mine's a little bit more than half a turn, which is good for my riding style because I like to whip it super fast. And always, you can always just take your bars off and adjust it however you like. But this should be good. And now, if I were to drop test my scooter at this point, it should sound good unless my compression is too loose. So we're gonna do a little drop test. So yeah, it sounds really, really good because I tightened my wheels already. I put my headset in correctly. I put my spacers in correctly, and I tightened it just enough to where it's dialed, but not too tight. That's a good way to test it. If you drop test it while you have your bars off and it sounds like it just sounds loose, then you can tighten it a little bit more until it sounds just perfect. Don't want it to be too tight, obviously. Now I'm gonna go ahead and throw my bars on, and then we're good to go. I just gotta show you guys how to do your clamp. So, and a big problem that people have is getting their bars not crooked. They want to have them straight. So a good thing that you can do is you can get a scooter stand. They actually sell them at Dialed Scooters and BMX. If you guys want to head up there. Or they also sell tools, really good park tools, better than the one I have here. So if you guys want to buy a nice tool for your scooter to use, they have those. They have plenty of stuff to choose from. But yeah, I'm not going to align my bars yet because that does take a long time, and I have to get to editing this video because I'm going to the skate park tonight. Stay tuned for tomorrow's video. It's going to be really, really good because I go to Ramp Riders. Every time I go to the skate park, my videos are way better than any video that I can film here at home. Also check out my other videos if you guys are interested in scootering. You guys will love them. But we've got this here. Let's just assume that my bars are aligned. I'm just gonna do a little. So we've got my clamp here, and just like when you took it off, you're gonna grab the exact same Allen key that you used, and you wanna make sure that your clamp, if you are not running a headset cap, you wanna make sure that your clamp is not touching your headset, because if you have it all the way down, it'll be rubbing on your deck, it won't spin correctly, it'll make weird noises. You wanna have it just a little bit off the deck. As you can see on mine, it's just barely not touching. And we're gonna do just a little bit of turn here, just a little bit of turn there on the bottom one, back to the top, and now it's starting to give us a lot of tension. And we're just gonna keep switching off until we get to the point where it is fully tight. You want this to be tight as possible. Hey Adam. You want this to be tight as possible so your scooter is not gonna fall apart. And if you are running IHC or HIC, when you tighten your clamp, you want it to be nice and tight so that it's not, your bars aren't moving back and forth. That can cause premature cracking in your bars, stuff like that. So as you tighten your clamp, once it gets super hard to tighten, you should be good to go. And now my scooter is dialed. Now you might hear a little bit of racketiness in there. I'm not sure what that is. It's probably just my bearings. So if you've done all this correctly and everything's nice and tight and your scooter does still sound rickety or anything like that, it probably means that it's your bearings or possibly your headset bearings. Sometimes you can have rust. Sometimes you can have just ovalized bearings, which means the bearings are misshapen or whatever. And that is caused by deck hitting the ground like that repeatedly over and over, like your wheel. So you want to try to avoid that as much as possible. Try to avoid hitting your wheel sideways like that because it can mess up your bearings. But yeah, that should be it for dialing your scooter, guys. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and if you have any questions at all, you can message me on Instagram or you can just comment any questions. Thank you for watching the video. I'll see you guys next time.